We will stand from the Destiny Islands. Welcome your host, Donovan.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Crash City. This week, I have former NFL wide receiver, now turned sports agent, Leron McCoy. This week, how are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. How you guys doing?
We're good, man. I'm excited, especially because the week that we're recording, this is the week of the Super Bowl. So I have a lot of questions pertaining to you being a sports agent, and I kind of shot you a few ideas when we were texting. Before we get into that, what I want to know is from your personal experience, and obviously you work with college athletes. How has the game changed for a player from when you played to now?
All right. First question. I mean, you have to kind of elaborate. Are you talking more from the collegiate standpoint, or are you talking the pro level?
I'm gonna say right now the collegiate level.
I think obviously the elephant in the room is that the young guys are now making money to play. I think that the addition of the transfer portal. When I played, if you transfer, you had to sit out a year. Now guys are able to transfer and play the next year. You can play. You can transfer to a rival that you may have played against. So recruiting has become a lot more about retention of players, not just recruiting them to get them on campus. Now you have to retain them, and then obviously there's a financial component. It's become a lot more like the NFL business model than ever was in the prior.
And then for a college athlete, now that NIL is a huge part of going to a school, how much pressure does that put on for any any regular athlete that's on the team? How much pressure does that put on? And what is the process of getting an NIL deal?
Okay, so I'll answer the pressure question first. I think it adds pressure. Just you're a young person. You know what I'm saying, and you're already tasked with being one of the more popular people on campus, and obviously you have all the pressure that comes along with being having that notoriety going on and then playing the game itself. And if it doesn't work out the way that you wanted to, or the way that other people wanted to, you could be ostracized for that, right? Then there's also just internal pressure. You want to be great. There's finances a part of this. So you want to make sure you're making the money, secure in the bag for you and your family. You might have become the breadwinner in the family. So I think like things like that create an enormous amount of pressure for a young man or a young woman. To answer your question in terms of you asked about the not the pressure, but also how does a deal come about, right?
Yes.
So last July, there was a legislation passed that said that all schools would have what's called revenue sharing. And revenue sharing meant that each school had to share their revenue with the student athletes now. And it wasn't the entire amount, but it was a significant portion. So each school currently has $20,500,000 to split amongst their athletic department, their different sports, right? So, and these are Power Four schools, not all the schools, but the Power Four specifically. So if you think about some schools that are heavy in football, they're going to make sure that the football team and the basketball team takes a large portion of those funds, and then it'll start to dwindle down based upon, the popularity of the sport and the way that that sport means to that university. Um, so that's kind of how once that happened, right? And they had to start sharing revenue with the young men and young ladies. Then they were able to start putting together what we call compensation packages. Meaning, if you come here and you play for this amount of time, what is the compensation rate going to be in addition to your typical scholarship? Your scholarship offer that you got.
And then are you there with the athlete when they are choosing their school, as you just had somebody transfer from FIU to Minnesota? Did you help guide him in any possible way, or did he just say, "Hey, I choose this school"?
Okay, depending on what part of the process are you talking about? You talking about the beginning, or are you talking about more towards when the decisions are made?
When the decisions are made.
Okay, perfect, right? Because the first way would imply that I'm talking to him while he's at a certain university and we are colluding to get him to go somewhere else. And I would never do a thing like that. I'm saying that all in jest, right? So if you're talking about once you have a collection of schools that are vying for your services, right? And
Mhm.
you're taking visits and you're evaluating them. Each kid, I won't call them kids. Each player has a different motivation that what he wants to accomplish. He has a different goal, right? Some young men all just want to go straight to the NFL, so they're looking for a university that's going to help, fast track that, right? Meaning the right coach, the right system, etc. Some are looking for more playing time, so finances might not be a big deal. Some are looking for the financial part. Like I want to make sure that I'm compensated, the most I can. Right. So for me, it's like to first I have to identify what my client wants. What's him and his family's needs. Is it all financial? Is it about playing time? Is it about, being closer proximity to home? Whatever it is, I find that out. And then we basically start to, go throughout the visits. We evaluate the coaching staffs. We evaluate the financial part of it. I do my best to make sure that the finances meet the fit. The
Mhm.
first thing you want in any situation, you want to have a fit, right? The fit's got to feel good to you. You want to be here for the next year, the next 2, 3 years. You want to make sure that's the place you want to be at. Then it's up to myself to come in and make sure the dollar amount equates to the fit. So as we started to get the young man you're talking about is Zion Chapman, as we started to get down to his final, let's say 3, 4 schools, I felt like with Zion, it was important for me to go on the visits with him. A lot of times I won't, go on a visit with the guys because I have a lot of different players in different places. So I need to kind of be somewhere central to handle phone calls and negotiations and things like that. Zion's case was a little different. He had an injury, so I wanted to make sure that there wouldn't be any curveballs to come up at last minute at universities. So we went to them together. And as we go and you start to meet the coaches and you get a feel for the staff, you get a feel for the vision and the plan of the places, you decide like, hey, this is going to be the one. A lot of times the negotiations have already been taken care of. You kind of just want to handle out some language, things like that, and then you make the deal.
Okay, and do you currently have any clientele that have declared for the upcoming NFL draft, or are they still have another year or two in college?
No, so my guys all still have a year or two in college. I was a certified NFLPA agent for over a decade, and the way that works is if you don't pay your dues every single year, or you don't have the your revolving insurance, or go to the seminar once a year, your license will be put on ice for a year. So I'm currently actually in my reinstatement part right now. Like that's where we're at. Where I become reinstated again in July. But all my guys are still in college. They're young. They're moving around, and so this time the draft next year, 2027 draft, we will have some guys.
And what inspired you to become a sports agent? Um, like what came about that when you finally left the game?
I think it's just the way that the way that I carried the game, the way that I handled the game. I think that you're gonna meet a lot of players that talk about, they really love football and they treated it as such. I was the opposite, you know what I'm saying? And so like I like the game, right? But I like more so the things that the game bought me. I like the
Mhm.
attention, I like the women and running around, love the money. And so if you run through the game that way, the game will be done with you kind of fast. You know what I'm saying? If you're talented, it'll last a little longer, but eventually it catches up to you. Because if you don't have the love for the game, it's hard for you to wake up and, work out, put your body on the line, go through the vigorous training all year round, the injuries, working out in the rain and all that, right? And so once I got done with my career, it was like, I'm like, I really want to be able to help young men not make the same mistakes I had. Realize that it's a short window, but it's an amazing window, right? And if you just handle it the right way, you can really set yourself up and your family for a long, long time. and I didn't take advantage of all those opportunities. And so this was my opportunity to give back to the guys, to kind of help the little Leron. You know what I'm saying? The little Leron that made that mistake, I can look back and say, nah, this is the way we do it. And, I think that's what gives me my, my motivation, my purpose to kind of, you know, talk and rock with the younger guys. It's real entertaining. It's real fun. It's real uplifting.
So when you say that you liked what the game could bring you, not necessarily the game itself, what did it feel like that day that you did get drafted?
I think that is probably the most incredible day for all athletes, right?
Mhm.
It's a day that it basically tells you that everything that you thought about yourself is true.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? When you work out, when you're training, because football is a game where you're going to work out 12 months out the year for like 11 days, right? You're going to work out all the time for like 11 single Saturdays or 11 Sundays, whatever it is. Cool. And so while you're doing that, a lot of those workouts and time by yourself, you're always talking to yourself. Every athlete to tell you that, like, come on, one more, or they can't stop me. This one's for this summer, or whatever you do to get yourself going, right? So you've been doing that for, let's say, the last 10, 15 years, you've been telling yourself, like, I'm like that, and no one can see me, and I'm the best, and yada, 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 yada. So you've been dreaming of this day, thinking about it, and it hasn't been real forever. And then you go through the combine and the training process where you don't know where you're going to go. You don't know how you stack up against the others. And at that moment, when the phone rings and the guy's on the other line and says, hey, this is so and so from this place, and we want to take you with this pick, it kind of is a moment that says, you were right. And it's the best feeling. I've had some good ones, man. I've had that. I've had children, so I gotta say that that was a good time too. But the draft, and I would say scoring my first and only NFL touchdown, right? I think those are the ones that are like, yo, they stick out, and I can still go to that moment anytime I want. I can go back to that very moment when it happened. And so from that, it's the same way when I'm with my younger guys, and they're going through the draft. I can feel that moment. I can see it in their face. It's like their dreams will come true right before your eyes.
How hesitant are they, or are their families when you first approach them saying, "Hey, I want to represent you. I see potential in your son. He's going to be somebody that could make
Mhm.
it to the NFL and do great." Obviously, most parents are going to be a little hesitant even though they believe that their son is the best player in the world because they're their parents. What is that feeling out process initially?
That's a good question. Nobody's asked me that. It's a mixed bag. You know what I'm saying? It's a mixed bag. It's like on some side, you get parents that are starting to hear more about agents and they really want to
Mhm.
help. On the younger side, it helps me connect with them because I know what they're looking for. It's like you want to boost out your recruiting, right? And then you don't want to leave a dollar on the table when it's time to negotiate your compensation package. So generally, a lot of times you'll get that. Now, what I will say is the further I get away from home base, right? So I'm originally from the East Coast. You know what I'm saying? And I have ties in different places, but I'm originally from the East Coast, Pennsylvania. The further I get away from there, if I call a kid in California, those people are always more weary, right? It's not that it's in
Mhm.
Cali, it's the further away from having like a connective tissue. So if I don't know anybody and I'm calling you out of the blue, I got your phone number from Instagram or whatever, those people are naturally a little bit more weary, like, who is this dude and what are you trying to take from us, right? And so my
Mhm.
number one thing I like to tell families is I literally am I'm an addition of what you've already built. You know what I'm saying? I can't do any, I'm like a weapon. I can't do anything unless you point me. And then we get active.
Do you typically try to get, I know you said you wanna sometimes you want them to stay close, but is it easier sometimes for these guys that for a fact have a good chance in the combine to get them away from home and start trying to see if they can start building themselves as adults?
I mean, I think every kid has his own, what I'm saying, his own different story, right? So if you talk about one of the best players in like a state like let's say Pennsylvania, right? And he's
Mhm.
from Philadelphia, and everybody kind of knows him in the city. And Philadelphia can be a dangerous city, and sometimes it might help to send him away to a different place where he can be around more students that are just like him in terms of they have the same goal. It might make a lot of sense to get an inner city kid away from that city for a little bit, right? But then you have other people that are like they perform their best. These are young men like around family, so you can't take a kid that may be from Philly all the way to California. He won't see his mom and dad, and you know what I'm saying. He's like, nah, I like want to see my family at the games. So it might make sense for him to be at a school that's in driving distance. I think it's a case by case scenario. Everybody's got a different, thing. I think me when I came out, I could care less. Like I didn't. I was like, take me wherever. Just because it's a personality thing where it's like I don't care where I play at. I just want to go to a place that I like.
How young were you? And I want you to be 100% honest because I think it'll be a great conversation piece. How
Always.
young were you when you thought or when you realized that you and your brother have potential to do uh, something that very few get to do in life and make it to the NFL? How young were you?
Well, the question. Okay, so the question's a little. I knew at different times for both of us, right? So me, I can remember I went to a D2 school, and so I remember being a senior in high school or college. It was a senior in college or a junior in college. I think I was a senior. I was a junior. Whatever, sorry.
Mhm.
Junior year at college, I think I scored like 4 touchdowns, like 3 in the air, 1 on the ground. And this guy came up to me after the game and it was like, I work for somebody that works for the New Orleans Saints. He wants to talk to you, right? So he hands me this phone, and this guy's like, oh man, you're great. We think you go to the NFL. And that was the first time I ever thought about it. I was like, oh, for real? Now, the funny part is, now that I know how agents work, that could have been anybody. That could have been anybody, right? But at the time, I'm thinking it's the Saints is calling me. I'm like, yo, what's up? And he's like, you could go to the NFL. And so from that point on, that was probably the end of my junior year. I started to have a mindset like, I want to go to NFL. Nobody that I knew went to the league. Like, you know,
Yeah.
I went to a small school, so it's like I don't have guys that went the year before me in the NFL. The dudes that graduated before me was still around campus, trying to finish their degrees, right? So that wasn't a thought I had. But once that call happened, and then my senior year, you know what? So then my senior year, every day at practice, there would be like 3 scouts from 3 different teams or whatever. They would show up. You might be the Vikings and the Bills and the Chargers. Then the next day, it's like the Eagles and at that time the Redskins and whoever. So that's kind of what I knew. I'm like, okay, and then I could tell by how much time they would spend with me when they would talk to me. So I had other teammates they might talk to for like 5 minutes, but me, it was like, we're going to sit here for like 30, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever. Follow me to lunch. It was all type of stuff going on. Now, my brother, it's different because I've always known he was a better athlete than me, right? So I think I knew for him when he probably was a sophomore in high school. The first time I ever seen him play, I came home from college and I got a chance to see him playing like maybe a state semifinal or some type of district championship. And he scored 7 touchdowns that game. And so it looked like literally the way I recruit right now is I look for the player that looks like an alien. Like he dropped out of somewhere else, made the wrong turn, and now he's running around with a bunch of little kids. No matter where you're at in high school or college, that's how I recruit. I want a guy that looks like he doesn't belong here. And that's exactly what it looked like. When I watched him, I'm like, yo, he's just running by dudes, running over, running by. It's like easy to him. And so that was the moment where I knew I'm like, yeah, he can probably go to the all the way. So it just comes at different stages. For him, it came in high school as a young guy. For me, it came late in my college career. And I mean, that's kind of the way our careers in the league played out. Like he was a superstar and I was like a role player, but that's kind of how it works.
So I like that you said now that you're an agent that the guy on the phone could have been anybody. Do you ever have
Anybody.
moments like that now where some of your young guys are like, "Hey, this brand wants to talk to me," or this team wants to say something, and you just look at them and you go, "Oh, I think somebody's trying to lie to my boy right here."
Yeah, I mean, it happens a lot. I think that it happens a lot. So right now, the agents we have like we have a bad reputation in the college world because we're seen as like money hungry and doing anything to get a kid away from one school to sell them to another school. And I mean, it's a lucrative business, so I understand why some guys do it, but it doesn't help the young men, right? So for instance, you'll have a kid that goes to, let's say, a very small school. I'm not sure anyone out there, right? And
Mhm.
then you'll have an agent or someone, come to him and say, hey, if you get in the transfer portal, I can get you to Alabama, I can get you to Georgia, Texas, etc. And the young man, and they'll get you X amount of money, this dollar amount, this and this. The numbers are big, but they're exaggerated, right? It's similar to any situation where no one really tells people how much they really make, right? Unless they
Mhm.
complaining. You know what I'm saying? People usually lie about how much money they make. How much money do you make, bro? And it's like your boy's gonna tell you, I got paid 450 this year to be a kick returner or whatever. The real number might be nowhere near that, but you have no way of finding it out. But in your mind now, you feel like if they paid him that, I can get this. So you have these agents that throw these big numbers out to guys to get them from one school to the next, not realizing he could be jeopardizing an even bigger future in the NFL by going to a place, that's not really right for his situation. And there are thousands and thousands of kids in the transfer portal, and there's less places for them to actually go. Right.
Mhm.
So with that being part of like the whole understanding, it's like you have to make sure the guy that you hire knows people, has credible information, and can do the things that he says he can do. Right. And I think that's kind of where my company and myself.
So one thing that I shot you an idea, and I want to talk about it and just go as thorough as possible that you can. With this previous draft, we had a lot of controversy, and it was mostly that a few players were deciding, hey, maybe I don't need to actually sign with this team that drafted me. I can make a certain amount going back and playing one more year in college, and then come back and try to get redrafted the following draft. Now,
Okay.
what is your idea with how much leverage NIL gives college players now? And is it going to be something that a lot of teams are going to have to worry about in the future, or was that just like a rare occurrence?
No, I don't think it's rare at all. I think that if you look at the Indiana team that just won, they had a team that was compromised of it was composed of players that actually had experience playing. They were one of the older teams, and a lot of people look down on that, but like they know how to play ball, right? So
Mhm.
if you have guys that are able to get experience playing football, create some tape for NFL teams to watch, and then also, make money, what is the reason to jump and go to NFL?
Mhm.
I think that the thought process in being young is like, I want to go play at the biggest stage. What most people won't tell you is one of the biggest reasons is because we wanted to make money. You
Yep.
know what I'm saying? Like, I think a lot of fans always be like, love the game and this university and all that's not realistic. That's like those things are important, but they will always come secondary to like your first team, which is your last name. That's your first team. And you think about them all the time. And so it's like, how can I support mom, support dad, buy the house, whatever your plans are. Now, the way that the game is structured, it's enabled guys to say, hey, I can stay a little longer, finish my degree, I'll make this money, and then I don't see my draft stock slipping. I see it only getting better because I'm a better player than I was last year, or they assume they will be. Right. I think that it gives the players a lot of just options, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. In terms of the actual players that it helps the most are probably quarterbacks. Quarterbacks able to look at a scenario, know where they're going to get drafted, and say, "No, I don't want to go there." You know what I'm saying? And that's their
Mhm.
right. They're gonna make a lot of money to stay in school, keep performing, and then go to a different, more desirable location. Yeah, I think that's excellent. I think that's anybody would like that opportunity to be able to look at a job and say, you know what, I'm going to buy my time until a better opportunity comes to where I can land on my feet and be a better player. I don't want to go into a disaster or garbage. What is it? What do they call them? A dumpster fire, and
Yeah.
be and have to save everything. I look at Sam Darnold with the Jets, and it's like he went to an organization that wasn't built to support him. The general manager that drafted him said he's a good player. We failed. And that general manager was fired, and people move on. But after many years with Sam Darnold about to be in a Super Bowl, it looks like that general manager was exactly right. The kid could always play. He was exactly who we thought he was. we just couldn't give him the right pieces around to, to develop that talent the way it needed to be developed.
And speaking of the league, which part of the season actually gets you excited or gets you alert about what's going on? Is it, something like this week, like I said, that we're recording, is the week of the Super Bowl, or is it the combine,
Yeah.
or, do you even look
It's
at it
good, man.
anymore since you are trying to reinstate and you just focus on college?
No, I mean, the league is always gonna be the league. I'm always gonna watch football every weekend, right? It's to
Yep.
a fault. But I will say there's different things that get me excited. The number one thing that gets me excited is probably opening weekend. You know what I'm saying? Opening weekend is
Mhm.
we have a standing ongoing annual trip that we call the Open. Me and all my buddies, we go different places, different cities every year, and we watch the first weekend of the games. Now that the gambling thing is here, all my boys definitely want to go places where they can gamble, and that's a whole thing. So I think the first weekend is going to be big for me. Um, the draft is always huge. The combine for the combine is a good place to go to network and meet people. You'll meet all the coaches, whether they're head coaches, personnel staff, offense, defense. You'll get a chance to meet those guys, talk to them. You'll see other agents that you're competing against, and for some of those conversations are cool. I want to learn different industry things from those guys. I may compliment them on the deal they did. Like, hey, you did a deal for your cornerback and got him the highest paid, and we were then able to turn around and get our guy a bigger number because of the job that you did. So we appreciate each other. So those are good places. Divisional weekend of the playoffs is always good. Super Bowl, not so much. It always depends on who the teams are, right? Like this year's Super Bowl, I'll be honest, I ain't. If I miss it,
Mhm.
I'm not gonna be mad. I'm not lining up to see Drake May versus Sam Darnold.
Okay, fair enough. Because it's all interesting to me, at least, is everything that you have to go through being a agent for all of these athletes. And the last thing I want to touch on is legacy NIL, um, and everything about legacy NIL, the company that you work for.
Sure. So Legacy NIL came about because, like I said, I was an NFLPA certified agent for a decade. I worked for one of the largest sports agencies in football. For many years, it was the largest. At any given time, we carried about 150 athletes. And then under my personal overwatch, I was the agent in charge of about 30, 35 guys, right? And it took everything, I took everything off the plate of a player, whether that's helping them, find housing or, a car or, anything that he just did so he didn't have to worry about that. He can focus on football, not to mention contracts, contract negotiation, contract research. Guy gets cut, traded, or waived. You got to make sure he has a home to go to. And if he does, to move his house from Tampa to LA or Milwaukee, right? So you have all those things going on. And I did that for, like I said, a decade. And I learned from one of the best out there. And at a given point, I just felt like, you know what, with NIL coming about, I could do this and plant my own flag and put my own name on the company, right? We all have different touches of things that make us special, and it'll come through your business. So I wanted to start my own business. And
Mhm.
so I got with my business partner, Ishmael Kamara, who had the same exact job I had before another big agency, a competing one against me. So, we grew up together. He's working for one agency, I'm working for the other. He's out recruiting guys, I'm recruiting guys. He's doing his contract stuff, so am I. And then we got to a point where we're like, look, man, we're making other people money. And I think it's time for me and you to kind of do our own thing. So we started our own company with the same principles that we learned from our mentors in the space. But we just put our own sauce on it. You know what I'm saying? And so that's kind of how I feel like what sets myself aside. Sometimes when you have a young man, he's looking for a certain thing in an agent, right? And if I worked for an agency where the owner is a little different than me, then he's probably never choosing a place because of me. He's choosing it because of the special things that owner has, right? And
Mhm.
so I wanted to go someplace where if I lose a guy, and I've lost some big names, right, in recruiting, and that's like a breakup. You know what I'm saying? If I lost a guy, I wanted to feel like, yo, I lost him because of me. I didn't want to lose him because of anything else that wasn't under my control. So now that we sit here, it's like if I go interview with a young man and his family and I try to go through the whole recruiting and we don't get him and I lose him to a different place, I really be like, well, it's a loss. But I'm competitive, so it is what it is. We get right back to it, right back on the recruiting trail.
Okay, and I want to touch on one more thing, and especially when you were um, working with the league, is how stressful is it the moment a player gets traded?
Uh, so there's different types of trades, man. There's a guy that we represented Antonio Brown, and he was with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then he signed a free agency deal to go to were they the Vegas Raiders or were they still Oakland at that time?
They were Oakland still. They were still Oakland.
And it was Oakland, right? So at that point, there's a lot of stories out there. I don't want to hash too much into it, but he got to a scenario where he wanted to be traded. He wanted out. And so things got uncomfortable for everyone around. And I think what happened was I think they released him. That's what they did. They didn't trade him, they released him. But that was a scenario where a guy wants to be released. He wants out. So
Yeah.
he was excited. He was excited. Then we went to work on trying to, secure him another home. Okay, you fast forward that to other trades or cuts that have happened where a guy just doesn't see it coming. And, he's got an idea of what he wants to do that season. I think LeSean's case in Philadelphia was one of those. So LeSean was their premier running back, their premier player on offense, and had been multiple Pro Bowls and had been an all pro player multiple times in the height of his career. Like, what I'm saying? He is the guy. He's stepping on things. And then, you get a situation where you have a coach and you and the coach don't really agree, but it's to the thing where it's like we don't agree, but it's not like end of the world stuff. Like I don't like how you do this and you don't like how I do that. All it takes is like mediation. For the best player and a coach on the team, usually that's kind of how it works. You just mediate things through the agent or whoever else. But out of nowhere, he just trades them. Like, nah, it's cool. I don't want to mediate. I'd rather just trade. And so that was a thing of like no one saw it coming. There was no leaks in the building. There was no, you should watch out for this. It's just like boom on TV. And I think those trades or those releases when guys are cut or traded, those are heartbreaking because dudes don't, they have lives too. They have
Mhm.
lives, they have families, they have, places and homes and that they've built themselves, they've inserted themselves in those communities. And then when they're forced to leave, not of their own doing, I think that fans somehow think like, players love money, they'll go wherever the money's at. It's not always the case. Sometimes they really feel like, they feel disrespected. I always tell my young guys this, and this is kind of around the same story. I tell them that anytime you play football, it's an audition, and you are auditioning for the opportunity to play next year, right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't change no matter how good you are, because every single player is auditioning because every single player will be shown the door, right? Now, there's going to be small cases of guys that are not, but most times that's the way. And I say, all you have to do is just remember that the Indianapolis Colts literally cut Peyton Manning, and then the next year he went and threw 50 touchdowns. That's crazy to me, but that's the truth. Like they cut Peyton Manning, said, "Nah, we're good. Take your
Yep.
business." And he built the building that they were in. He built it. Nah, it's cool, Peyton. You know what I'm saying? Have a good day. We don't get Andrew Luck, and whatever happens with you, we wish you the best. And then all he went out to do is just won an MVP. I think maybe twice after that. Went to the Super Bowl twice after that. So again, it's an audition for everybody. You have to show up every day not knowing what's here tomorrow. It's not guaranteed.
That's wild. I didn't even think of the story of your brother when I was asking that question because I wanted to see what it was like and how stressful it was, on y'all's end and especially the Antonio Brown situation with his spat with Mark Davis that got him,
Was it I
you know,
think it was more with the general manager. I can't remember his name right now. He used to work on NFL Network, really knew players in the draft, but didn't draft well. Mike
Yeah.
Mayock is his name. Mike
Oh,
Mayock.
okay. Yeah. And it's just interesting hearing this from this end. So as we begin to wind down, what is one piece of advice that you could give to, and super realistic piece of advice that you could give to a kid that is in his like junior year of high school and he's already starting to get college offers?
There's a bunch of ways I can take that. I think on the macro side, right? I would tell them that always always aim for discipline over motivation. You know what I'm saying? So motivation is fleeting. It comes, it goes, but discipline to do things and routine doesn't change. You wake up, you do the same thing all the time. If you can do that, success will find you. And then on the micro level, like when we're talking about the recruiting part, I think that my number one thing is when it comes to guys and recruiting is like, don't recruit based upon like guys recruit based on logos. It's the real big logo chasers. You know what I'm saying? It's like I really love this coach here at Georgia Tech. I love Georgia Tech. I love the way I fit into the offense, the whole thing. But I'm gonna go to Miami because it's Miami. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna go to Texas because it's Texas. And they didn't recruit me as hard. I don't know. I don't like the scheme as much. And so my thing is like, you can't chase the logos when you're out doing this. You got to chase the fit. Where do you fit in that? Where do you feel like, damn, I know I'm setting myself up for something real special. You don't want to work hard your whole young career to get to the chance to take a scholarship and you take it to a place that you're a second afterthought to. A lot of guys do that. Like, if we don't get these 7 guys, then we'll get you. Even though this other team has been recruiting and fighting and for the last 3 years just to get the opportunity. They got a whole offense waiting for you, but you want to go somewhere that doesn't really want you. And that's going to look to replace you the first chance they get because they feel like they lost. You're not a recruiting win to them. You're a recruiting like stabilizer. Like, oh, we lost to these guys. Let's just get him for the time being. And if it works out, cool. If not, oh well, we'll replace him. That would be my advice to the guys on a big scale and then on a smaller one.
Right. Where can everybody find your socials?
You can find me on Instagram first. You can find me at Dutch, just like that, at Dutch. And then on X, as it's now called, it's at L McCoy 1788. Let me think. Anything else? So we are legacy dot no, we are legacynil.com. And then our Instagram is at legacy.nil. So these are all the places you can find us. Feel free to definitely check in, and we check all the socials. You can hit me directly, or you can go to the company website, company logo.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this was my conversation with Leron McCoy, former NFL wide receiver and possibly one of the most realist agents you could get because it seems like he will tell you straight.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you
true.
for being here. I enjoyed it. I loved it. This was awesome getting to talk to you. And we will see each and every one of you in our next adventures. Bye, guys. That was this week's interview. Obviously, you had to have loved it because you stayed towards the end, and we really appreciate that. But please hit the subscribe button. Like, comment, even share. Helps me and helps my guests. And if you want to stay here a little bit longer, we have previous weeks where we interviewed some of the most best people on this planet. Plus, you can head over to the Crash Pad where you can see me, Erebus V, and It's Bacon just mark out on some wrestling, whether you want to get into wrestling or already been a fan for years. Come and see our reactions. You never know what you're going to get.